Hello. Today I'm talking about 4 books that really disappointed me and which other 4 books I recommend you read instead. All of this because I am in a foul mood and I thought I would both give myself some space to vent, because sometimes that works better than swallowing it all down, but of course we need a little bit of a glimmer of a hope as well. All 4 of these are pretty big successful books, so let's jump right in with one. I'm not just going to make friends here. American Gods by Neil Gaiman really disappointed me. It starts off really fun with Shadow, our protagonist, in prison, being released 3 days early, and because his wife dies. There, it's a mini spoiler. It happens after like 50 pages, 40 maybe, and it's a big book. And then he goes on this big raucous road trip to help gods fight new gods. Old gods fight new gods in America. The reason why this really didn't work for me is that so much is crammed into this book with little side notes about gods from all kinds of different beliefs and cultures, and I never got fully invested in what should have been our main characters. And then the ending is super trivial. I feel like if you are telling myths about gods, then you have to either have an epic big ending or almost a little more realistic, neatly wrapped up ending, and it didn't deliver on any of those things. This is the film series tie-in cover, and I watched the first 3 episodes, I think, after completing this book last month, and also thought the series is kind of rubbish. I don't know, sorry if you loved this, I really didn't. Instead, I recommend you read Mythos by Stephen Fry. These are retellings by, another British guy of the Greek myths. And this, I felt, delivered on teaching you about real myths. With American Gods, I found myself Googling the gods and wanting to find out what the actually delivered stories about them are. Well, with this, you don't need to Google. You can look it up. There's a handy little family tree in the beginning as well. Will I find that? Yeah, which you can leaf back to, and you can learn something about the Greek gods and how they are related. And I think it was approachable. Stephen Fry writes this in a very sort of witty but intelligent manner, and I think you should read this instead. It's non-fiction, this is fiction, but I think this is the more worthwhile read. Next, The Testaments. This won the Booker Prize, and I don't understand why. This is the sequel to the book that I recommend you read, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This came out in the early 80s. You could have looked that up before talking about it, couldn't I? 1985. This is a classic feminist dystopian novel. We follow Offred of Fred. She's been given to a man called Fred as a handmaid to birth him a child. We live in a society where women have become largely infertile, and so basically this is a story about sort of sex slavery, and this very fundamentalist, conservative society. And the way Margaret Atwood writes this is very intelligent, and I understand, because of a slightly open ending, why she then many years later, 2019, went on to write The Testaments, which starts off 15 years after the ending to The Handmaid's Tale and supposedly gives us all these answers that we've been waiting for 40 years, almost 40 years. but we haven't. This is an excellent book with an ending that makes you think. This explains everything. We follow 3 or 4 aunts, which are basically a sort of newly politicized nun people who teach young girls how to become proper wives. So we are still sort of in this very extreme fundamentalist Christian leaning political system, and then it just turns into a YA novel where we follow, I think, the May Day Initiative, that's what it's called. There's basically like this rebel group, and how they try to bring down this state. So then there's hints towards this only being like a secluded state within, you know, a world that doesn't look like this politically. It didn't work for me at all. I think it is probably the more plotty, fast-paced book than The Handmaid's Tale, but this is a classic for a reason. This meant making a bit more money many years later after the success of the TV series The Handmaid's Tale. Stick with the original, same author, but you know, she didn't need to write the second one. Then I have 2 books by the same author again. The book that I thought was rubbish was Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This follows Fanny, who is a very devout, pure, poor girl who is sent to live with her family, who has more money. You know, as in the aunt's family or something like that. And Fanny Price grows up with her 4 older cousins who are all insufferable, but, you know, wealthy and well educated. So she always sort of lives in their shadow. And I guess you can read this as sort of social satire on class, but it is so slow moving. She is some people love Fanny because she isn't this loud, gregarious, snappy heroine, but she is, you know, more quieter, introverted, and I respect that. But I also think she's really, really judgy and condescending because no one is as pure and devout as she is. Her cousins kind of flirt around and get involved in like love scandals, and I feel like she just judges them from afar, only then to sort of be eternally in love with her cousin Edward, which I realise different times, but still, being in love with your cousin, not sure how Christian that is. Mansfield Park is a no for me. Instead, just read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I feel like I don't need to explain the story behind it. The Bennet sisters are all hopefully going to be married off if their mother gets her way, and Elizabeth, Lizzie, is our heroine, who famously, timelessly meets Mr. Darcy, and he thinks he's too good for her and she thinks he's a bit of an idiot, and they fall in love with each other. I think the characters in this are much more likable. I also think the love story is one that you can actually root for, and Pride and Prejudice gets referenced and retold so much in current literature that I think it is fun that even if you don't get on with this story, after having read this, I recognize nods to this story in other books. So for that reason, I desperately recommend you read Pride and Prejudice instead of Mansfield Park. Tell me which other Jane Austen books I should read, by the way. I've read Sense and Sensibility, and I also thought that was all right. Not great, but all right. I like that. Tell me what I should read next, because I am planning a buddy read with a friend of another Jane Austen book, and we haven't quite decided what yet. Finally, I'm going to end with a Bookstagram and Booktube darling, Secret History by Donna Tartt. This follows, I've even forgotten what the guy is called. Some guy who wishes he'd grown up rich, but he hasn't. He goes to this elitist college. Richard gets into this elite liberal arts college somewhere in, I want to say, New England, Vermont. I'm sitting outside, sorry for the noise. He gets into this program, studies Latin, and meets this little circle of fellow students in this like very select course with this strange and elusive lecturer, professor, and they all get sort of like wrapped up in each other, with each other, and someone dies. And what's happened? This is the dark academia novel, and some people just love that genre. I have my difficulties with dark academia as a genre. I must admit, it's not, I don't love it. Like, I don't think this is a university experience to aspire to. I also thought there were so many lengthy passages just about people showing off that they can quote Latin text. That gave me absolutely nothing. I thought this was far less exciting than expected. I mean, there is a murder to be solved, and I was not invested. I thought the professor character was really poorly fleshed out, and I didn't really understand how he was placed in this story. I'm trying not to spoil you, because obviously go ahead and read it if me not liking it is making you want to read it more. But instead, I suggest you read The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer. This is not dark academia. Even the cover design tells you as much. But in this, we follow also 6 teenagers up until adults that meet at a sort of arts camp for teenagers and stay in touch. They become fast friends, and then we follow them sort of throughout their adult life, what happens to them, who has success in their creative career choices, and who decides to do more smart things, as in, you know, get a degree and do something with your life. I thought this was the more interesting book because the characters are fully formed characters. There isn't just the token girl that is beautiful and everyone wants to have sex with her. There are different kinds of female characters in this. There's not just the clever asshole who manipulates everyone. There are clever assholes that want certain things for themselves, and aren't just narcissists. So more dimensional people, and I prefer reading about people who sound real. Also, so much drug and alcohol abuse, which I just thought was almost glorified in this university setting. And this I thought was interesting for showing different versions of a creative life in the arts, whereas this paints one version of a type of people, maybe with the one distinction of some have money, some don't. This shows the colourful myriad of experiences that people have. So there you go. 4 books I think you should either not read or read them so we can bitch about them, and 4 that I really enjoyed and have similar vibes. Obviously, if I disliked a book that you loved, I don't want to rain in on your parade. I'd much rather just chat about it. I always prefer those conversations when we disagree on books, and I'll try to stay respectful. I mean, you know, I'm saying they're crap, but you do you if you enjoyed them. I hope you're doing well. Tell me if I'm full of it and you totally disagree, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.